I am so excited about you being here today. My friend Jeff Frymire for many years, we have known each other, and it's a joy to be able to welcome him. When I first started, I told the elders, one of the guys I want you to meet is Jeff Frymire. So this is kind of a dream come true. Somebody said, we really like, actually I've heard it a couple times, we like the different people coming in and speaking. It gives you an idea of, just listening to different voices is healthy, it's good. Somebody said, so if this guy that's coming, if you think he's a 10 as a preacher, what are you? And I said, I'm a 6'7". Not good.
I hear it all day.
You hear it all day. Oh, all right. So, thank you for being here, and you are in for a treat. Jeff and his wife Joni have been friends for a long time. Jeff has taught at several seminaries. Now he is in the Church of God Seminary in Anderson, Indiana, and is leading working with a grant from the Lilly Foundation on helping others become compelling preachers. And he's doing a great job, and I'm so thankful that you're still in the game, buddy. So, go.
Thank you, Pastor. Good morning. It is an honor to be with you and to share the pulpit of someone that I respect as much as your pastor. I think the Church of God will find itself incredibly grateful for the ministry that Eric Livingston has had and is having at a crucial time in the life of the church. His presence in national ministry, state ministry, and in local ministry is significant. You should be proud and honored that you have him as your pastor. His reputation spans not only the country, but around the world. He is well known and well respected. Therefore, I am grateful for you have supported him, and you have helped to create the man and the minister that he is. God bless you. My text this morning is from the Old Testament book of Joshua, and I'm going to read a few verses from chapter 4, beginning at verse 4. The story that I'm dealing with this morning takes place in both chapters 3 and 4. So starting at chapter 4, verse 4 is kind of in the middle of the story. To let you know, this is the nation of Israel crossing over the Jordan for the first time and going into the promised land. Moses has died, and they have a new leader, Joshua. And this is his first test of leadership. Joshua chapter 4, beginning at verse 4. So Joshua called together the 12 men he had appointed from the Israelites, one from each tribe, and said to them, "Go over before the ark of the Lord your God into the middle of the Jordan. And each of you is to take up a stone on his shoulder, according to the number of the tribes of Israel, to serve as a sign among you in the future. In the future, when your children ask, 'What do these stones mean?' tell them that the flow of the Jordan was cut off before the ark of the covenant of the Lord. When it crossed the Jordan, the waters of the Jordan River were cut off. These stones are to be a memorial to the people of Israel forever." So the Israelites did as Joshua commanded them. They took 12 stones from the middle of the Jordan, according to the number of the tribes of the Israelites, as the Lord had told Joshua, and they carried them over with them to their camp, where they put them down. Now, Joshua also set up 12 stones in the middle of the river, in the middle of the Jordan, where the priests who carried the covenant chest stood. And those stones remain there to this day. The word of God for the people of God. Thanks be to God. This is a powerful passage of one of the most important events in the history of Israel. For 40 years, the nation has wandered in a wilderness, unable, unwilling, incapable maybe, of taking one final step. Moses led them out of slavery, and in a dramatic experience, when they were being chased by the Egyptians, pressed up against the Red Sea, God parted the Red Sea and the Israelites walked through on dry ground. And when the last Israelite had gone, when the last Israelite had passed over and the Egyptians and their chariots were pursuing, the waters of the Red Sea came crashing down, and the Egyptians were drowned, and the Israelites were saved. For 40 years, they were supposed to go into the promised land. This crossing that you read of here was supposed to be the next step after the Red Sea parting. But instead, they got scared. They didn't know how to trust God. They wouldn't trust God. And so instead, God made them wander in the wilderness for a generation. The people that are crossing over the Jordan in this story never experienced the parting of the Red Sea. For them, it's only been stories. It's only been things that have been handed down from their relatives, all of whom died. There are no Israelites left from that parting of the Red Sea and crossing over, with the exception of Joshua and Caleb. Everybody else has died. And so this generation, these good folks, they've not experienced the Red Sea parting. They've only heard of it. But on this day, they experience a similar kind of miracle to give them a deeper understanding, not only of the power of God, but of the parting of the Red Sea. Joshua leads them up to the brink of the Jordan River. And then he tells the Levites, the priests who are carrying the Ark of the Covenant, to step out into the Jordan. Now, the problem is the Jordan is raging at this point. It is so full from all the runoff that you cannot cross over it. You will drown. It is just raging through. And as soon as the feet of the Levites carrying the ark touch the water of the Jordan River as it's raging past them, the river immediately dries up. God holds back the waters. The Levites, with the Ark of the Covenant, walk out into the middle of the river, and there they stand. Just like the parting of the Red Sea, the ground has become dry. As long as those Levites with the Ark of the Covenant remain in the middle of the river, the Jordan is shut up at a town named Adam, a way back. And then Joshua gives them the signal, and the nation of Israel, thousands upon thousands upon thousands, men, women, children, cross over the now dry riverbed of the Jordan, and they get to the other side. But in preparation for that, Joshua decides that there has to be a symbol of this, that there ought to be something to memorialize this. And he tells the tribes he wants one of their strong men, one man from each tribe, to meet him in the middle of the river. And so as the nation has crossed over, these 12 men come back out, and in the middle of the river where the Levites are with the Ark of the Covenant, they pull up these big boulders, these stones. And each one of these mighty men carries it on his shoulder, and they carry it over to the other side. where the nation of Israel is now encamped, having entered into the promised land. They take the stones and they put them in a circle. And they name this place. From now on, the name of this place will be Gilgal. And as so often happens in biblical experience, it's a literal name. Gilgal means a circle of stones. That altar is set up. It's to be a memorial, to be there forever, that everybody can see, to commemorate this incredible event. However, as they're setting up these 12 stones off in the bank to create Gilgal, Joshua walks back into the river. Remember, the Levites are still there with the ark. And right where they are, Joshua picks up 12 stones. And he forms them in a circle right there in the middle of the Jordan at the feet of the Levites. And when he's finished, he walks to the bank, calls the Levites and the ark to come over. Everybody has now gone to the other side, and as soon as the feet of the Levites carrying the Ark of the Covenant hit the land, the ground on the other side, the Jordan River, being held back by the hand of God, suddenly bursts forth, and it floods and rushes again. It is a seminal moment in the life of the Israelite people. And I'm trying to figure out why they built 2 monuments. I mean, I get the one. If you're going to have this event, you want to do something, right? So you get 12 stones, you put it there, you name the place Gilgal, it's a circle of stones. This is to be a memorial. This is to be a place of remembrance. Whenever you come by, you can see those 12 stones and you say to the kids, hey kids, I want to tell you a story about what happened. And they can remember what happened on that great day. Gilgal, therefore, becomes a special place in the life of Israel. It's the place where the prophet, the judge, Samuel, it's where he does his work, his ministry, his judging of Israel. It's where he crowns Saul to be the first king over all of Israel. Some years later, this all is, of course. What they'll do when they get to the other side and they're camped there that night, the nation of Israel is called to celebrate the Passover. So the very first Passover meal celebrated in the Promised Land happens at Gilgal in the shadow of these 12 stones. You can see why this is an important place. It's also probably true that when Jesus was an infant and his parents, Mary and Joseph, were warned in a dream that they should get out of Bethlehem because of the wise men had been there, and now the king was raging against them. They should get out of there and go to Egypt. And they would have traveled down, and the route they probably would have traveled would have taken them by Gilgal. And I can just imagine, as they're fleeing their own potential death or the death of their child, they're remembering what God did with those circle of stones. When the nation of Israel is formed and all the 12 tribes take their land, 6 of the 12 tribes that are in the southern portion of Israel, they pass through Gilgal all the time. It's a crossroads for them to get from one place to another. There is a place, there is this Gilgal that is an extremely important place that the nation of Israel honors for decades and generations to come. So I get why you build a memorial to remember this moment. You would too. My guess is you've got something around here, don't you? You've got something that you point to that's memorable of a place or a time or a moment. Joni and I just moved back to Anderson about 2 years ago. Joni actually grew up there. We met there in college, got married there. We've traveled back there many, many times. And now we're living there. And everywhere I walk across campus and everywhere I go, there's a memorial. There's a Gilgal for me. There's a place where I first met my wife. There's a place where I proposed. There's a place where my kids were when they went to college, when they went to Anderson. I've got these touchstones kind of all over the place, so I love being there. As a matter of fact, we can't drive anywhere in Anderson where Joni doesn't say, now, Jeff, down here and a block over in this house, that's where we used to live. She's constantly telling me her history and story of being there. Why? Because for us, it's Gilgal. It's got 12 stones wherever it is that we go. What Gilgal represents is a talisman, an Ebenezer. It's the terms that are used in the Old Testament. What it means is it's a visual and physical representation of the presence of God. That's why they build altars throughout the Old Testament, to remember what God did at this moment, in this place, with these people. The Ark of the Covenant is a talisman. It's an Ebenezer. It's a physical symbol. Do you know what's in, what is actually in the Ark? What they placed in the Ark? There's manna in there. There's the rod of Aaron in there. And the 10 Commandments written by the finger of God are in the chest. It's a very powerful physical symbol. In the tabernacle, the Holy of Holies is the place, the innermost sanctum of the tabernacle, where the Ark of the Covenant sits. And it's there to remind us that God is real. Matter of fact, at the Holy of Holies, at the Ark of the Covenant, the Jews believed it was the very place, the physical place, where heaven and earth met. In the New Testament, Jesus institutes communion, foot washing. He deals with baptism. Those are Gilgal moments. Places, times, events where we recognize that the presence of God is real and powerful, and we remember that God is with us. So I get it. I get whatever it is that they're trying to do with the 12 stones, the memorial on the side, people passing by. I get all of that. I was a teenager. I was 17, 18 years of age, and I went to a youth convention in Boyertown, Pennsylvania. I just started attending a Church of God a few months earlier in Gloucester, New Jersey, and I went to this youth convention, and while at the youth convention, one night, Horace Shepherd preaching, I went to the altar and I accepted Christ. My life was dramatically changed. Knelt there in the tabernacle at that altar. How many years later, Joni? Maybe 8 years later, we're back and I'm pastoring the church in Boyertown, the same town where I was saved. Matter of fact, the church started on the campground. And after being there a couple of years, they ordained me. And so they called Joni and I up for the ordination prayer. And we were in the tabernacle during a camp meeting. And I got up and I walked over to the same altar that I had gotten saved at, knelt in the same place where I had accepted Christ. And there the ministers gathered around me, laid hands on me, and I was ordained into the ministry. That's my talisman. That's my Ebenezer. That's my Gilgal. What places do you have that represent the presence of God that has touched your life? Whatever that place is, whatever those places are, that's your Gilgal. And I get why you put a circle of stones there. You want to remember that. You want to celebrate that. You want to be able to tell the next generation and the next generation what God has done. The power of remembrance is significant, and it is a part of our own faith and experience. But while I get all of that, there's another part of the story that really baffles me. Because you see, as they're setting up the stones on the side, out in Gilgal, that out there where they're camped. Joshua leaves them and walks back into the river. And in the middle of the river, where the Levites are standing with the ark, he picks up 12 stones and he forms them in a circle in the middle of the river. Leaves them there, walks to the bank, calls the guys with the ark to come out. They come out and they get to the bank, and the waters of the Jordan are unleashed and they come roaring by. And guess what happens to the altar that Joshua built? It gets flooded. It's now underwater. You can't see it. And I'm trying to figure out, why does Joshua set up an altar in the middle of the river that nobody will see? What is he thinking? What's the point? What's the reality? What's the lesson? And I think the lesson is something very powerful for you and for me. And it's this. The truth is, you can't always see God working. Oh, that would have been a great place for an amen. I thought you trained him better than this. Come on, Pastor. You can't always see God at work. God is always at work. God is doing things of which you have no knowledge. But on your side, it feels, it sounds, it looks, you perceive that God is, off somewhere, that he's not around, that he's not doing anything, that he doesn't care, that he's not concerned, that he's not involved in your life or in your situations. And those moments can challenge your faith. And those moments at times have destroyed people's faith because they thought that God was silent, that God was inactive, that God didn't care. But here's the reality. Joshua put stones in the middle of the river because he wants you to know that God is at work even when you can't see him. And that memorial is to remind them all that God is always present and active, even when you don't know it, even when you can't see it, even when you can't feel it. God cares more about your life than you do. Let that sink in for a moment. God is more involved in your salvation and discipleship and development than you are. God is always at work, even when you don't think he is. Isn't this the story of doubting Thomas? The disciple who wasn't in the upper room after the resurrection, who didn't see Jesus after he'd gotten resurrected, and said to the rest of the disciples, I'm not going to believe it unless I see it. He couldn't get over the concept that God is at work even when you can't see it. And Jesus, in order to honor his doubt, his questioning, ends up revealing himself a second time in the second room to the same group of people, this time with Thomas, walks over and says, here are my hands, here's my side, here are my feet. See the nail prints. And Thomas falls to the ground and he says, my Lord and my God. And Jesus, thinking back, I think, to Joshua's memorial in the middle of the Jordan, says to him, Thomas, do you believe now because you see? Blessed are those who have not seen and yet believe. I must also tell you that there were times when people could actually see Joshua's memorial in the middle of the Jordan. They were rare, but it's important to note when those times were. During times of famine and drought, like the time of Elijah when it stopped raining for 3.5 years, and the rivers dried up. At times of drought and suffering and anguish and pain, when the Jordan, instead of flooding its banks, shriveled up to barely be a small creek running through. the memorial that Joshua set up in the middle of the Jordan could on rare occasions be seen. I think that was also the reason that Joshua made that memorial, that altar, because he wanted to remind us that God is always at work in our lives, even and maybe especially during those times of loss and pain and struggle and grief. God knows what it's like to go through the wilderness, to go through the suffering, to go through the pain and anguish. And he wants to remind us, I'm still here. I'm still working. I'm still present. I'd like to tell you that this is just an interesting passage and a good sermon that developed out of that passage. But I need to tell you that this is very personal to me right now. That I'm clinging to this story maybe more than I ever have. My oldest brother, Toby, my hero. He was a tremendous athlete, probably the greatest athlete in the history of our high school. He was the first baseball player from Penn State ever to be drafted in the majors. He just was kind of everything. Went to 4 proms. Matter of fact, his freshman year, he went to the prom, and the girl he took to the prom was the queen. As a freshman. I mean, you don't hear this stuff. He was everything. He was the it guy. But Toby has struggled during the rest of his life. Alcohol has taken its toll. Today, he's bedridden in a nursing home on hospice with a morphine drip to try and keep the pain manageable. And I would assume close to death. He can't talk. His speech is now gone. And my prayer that I have been praying is that Toby, in the midst of his own suffering and dying, would see Joshua's altar in the middle of his life, in the middle of the river. And that he would commit his life into the hands of the merciful God, even in these last moments of his living. It's all I can do to help my hero, my brother, the person that I love, but it is something powerful. If you've reached that moment in your life where you feel like you're hanging on by a thread, and you've been questioning whether God is even real, or whether God really cares, or whether God is at all concerned with what it is that you're going through, your family's going through, your parents, your children, your spouse, your coworkers. May I offer you today this one thing. There is an altar, even if you can't see it. And God is at work, even when you think he isn't. Trust that in the hard moments. Pray with me. Oh God, You who work sometimes in the light and many times in the shadows. You who are our hope in times of darkness and as we walk through the valley of even the shadow of death. We pray, O God, that this day, that this moment, that you will make yourself real and known to all of us who are here present, that you will let us see both altars, the altar that reminds us of how you have been with us in the past, and the hidden altar beneath the surface that reminds us that you'll be with us even when we think you're not there. I pray God's blessings upon these good people, upon this church and upon their lives, upon their pastor and upon their leaders. In Jesus' precious name, amen.